It is the responsibility, the solemn responsibility of Congress to declare war. You wouldn't know it if you looked at the United States foreign policy, definitely for the last 100 years, but definitely for the past 20, 30 years, with this adventurism by the commander-in-chief as they parade and go into one country after the next. Even countries where it is not expressly enumerated, meaning the president himself has taken it upon himself to invade various countries. Afghanistan, Iraq. At least for that, they had some level of military, they went to Congress to get the justification for it. But Yemen, not so much. Syria, not so much. Somalia, not so much. It's one country after the next that we've instigated ourselves into without any real legitimacy to be there. Illegal wars. The bombings, when apparently there was a chemical strike and Donald Trump decided to strike and fire, had nothing to do with us. And right now, it is not the president's purview to slap a country just because the president doesn't like that country, nor is it the president's purview to go after a country that is not directly attacking America. In this particular case, neither was a case. It wasn't attacking us. You can even make a case that wasn't even attacking our interests. This was just pretty much global hegemony. From the standpoint of Yemen, however, this is a particular crisis. The Obama administration green-lighted this war with Yemen because they were concerned that Saudis would do something about the deal with Iran, and they wanted to kind of tamp down on the fears. So we assisted them in murdering and slaughtering the population in Yemen, many of which were civilians. Trump has been just as obsequious as Obama in assisting the Yemen and Saudi Arabia on this front, even as it became a humanitarian disaster, all the while lying to the American public that it's just logistics and in-air fueling, when a recent report or an accidentally leaked document showed that there were actual other exercises that we were assisting them, special forces, essentially lying to the American public in regards to how much we've instigated ourselves with the Saudis into the country. Even when countries reported around the world, U.S. assisted or U.S. led Saudi bombardment, because the world knows that Saudis wouldn't have been able to carry this out without the express permission of the United States and without the express help. Here's the catch. Donald Trump comes out and says, we're stopping the fueling. Now, the reason that they stopped the fueling is because the previous year, the United States had given the Saudis the ability to fuel themselves, meaning part of the package that we were giving them in military assistance gave them the planes that would allow them to refuel themselves, meaning they didn't need us to refuel anymore. This idea that we were somehow trying to, bring down the war by no longer assisting them was nonsense. It was a lie. Now, beyond that point, another lie that was put on the American public was the number of deaths. The number of deaths in Yemen are up to 100,000 people. At least 5-to-1 difference between what's reported versus what the new figures are in Yemen. Not to mention the starvation, not to mention the disease. They've weaponized disease, weaponized starvation, attacking a population, many of which are civilians, indiscriminately killing civilians. And the wild part about this is they're using this fig leaf of Iran when they haven't necessarily even demonstrated that Iran is allied with the Houthis in this way, meaning that there's a close association between these two things. They just say it, and asserting it seems to be enough in and of itself. Damn the evidence. Damn the evidence. Ro Khanna comes out with a bill to stop this war. Republicans use a legal trick in order to gut Ro Khanna's bill. It's like a logic thing. Let me let them explain it. But Ro Khanna was essentially trying to stop the illegal funding and assistance in this war. Because understand, we're assisting in the murdering and slaughtering of civilian population, assisting in humanitarian crisis, and Yemen has done nothing to us at all. They've done nothing to us. They've attacked our interests, not at all. They haven't attacked Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been attacking them relentlessly, including the port of Hodeidah, in which all of the food, or like 90% of the food, comes into the country by. Take a look at this. This RT did a breakdown of what the Republicans did for this.
We are following news out of the House of Representatives, where a legislative trick recently allowed Republicans to defeat a measure which would end U.S. support for the Saudi-led war on Yemen. This week, the House approved language which stripped war powers privilege from a measure introduced by Democratic Representative Ro Khanna, designed to, quote, remove United States armed forces from hostilities in the Republic of Yemen that have not been authorized by Congress. In order to kill the initiative, Republicans added a last-minute line to a procedural resolution concerning the Manage Our Wolves Act, which deals with the country's wolf population. The final clause in the resolution, quote, provides the provisions of Section 7 of the War Powers Resolution shall not apply to House Concurrent Resolution 138.
I hope that makes sense. So, at the end of a resolution, they add a bit of logic. It's like software. It's like if I had, if I say X equals 3, and then 20 lines down, I said, no, X is 15. Well, at that point, X is 15 because that's the line. That's the last bit of logic. In this case, it seems that the law is similar. The thing that Ro Khanna said, yeah, let's nix that. And they were putting it at the end of a Wolves Act resolution. How cynical. How cynical. That's shameful. I mean, that's... blood is on their hands. Blood is on their hands. It was already on their hands, but it's that much worse. I mean, you can make a case that say, well, Democrats can do this in a few months. The catch is, the reason that they would do this is because they know that there's support on both sides of the aisle to nix our support for this bloody war. It is embarrassing that we are assisting Saudi Arabia, this bloodthirsty regime, especially after the killing of Khashoggi. But I would argue that even before the killing of Khashoggi, it's weird to me that one guy getting killed, and I understand he's a Washington Post reporter, is not the thing that brings out this outpouring of support and brings the tears to people's eyes. The mass murder, that doesn't do it. The killing of one guy is the thing that brings all of this to this kind of screeching halt, or the attempted screeching halt. Take a look at Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard may be throwing her hat in the ring for president. So let's hear her, give her 2 cents. But I'm going to let Ro Khanna end this because Ro Khanna, this was his bill. This was his baby. And let's give him all the credit in the world because he was trying to end this bloody campaign.
Killed. And many more and the ability to vote on a bill that would end U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's genocidal war in Yemen. A war that has created the world's worst humanitarian disaster in generations, leaving 22 million people in dire need of humanitarian aid, tens of thousands of civilians killed, and many more vulnerable to mass starvation, famine, and cholera. Now, don't be fooled. If Congress and this administration truly were concerned about the plight of the Yemeni people and peace, all U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's atrocities would end now. Instead, last night on the Rules Committee, Republicans voted to shut down debate to prevent a vote that would end U.S. support for Saudi Arabia in Yemen. Now, later today, Congress has the opportunity to do the right thing. We are faced with a choice. I urge my colleagues to vote no on HRES 1142 so that Congress can fulfill our constitutional role, debate, and vote on this critical issue.
Yeah, they didn't do the right thing. They didn't do the right thing. They gut his bill. Let's keep going. Let's hear Ro Khanna, because this, like I said, was his baby. He was pretty pissed off.
The House and the majority denied a member of Congress a vote on matters of war and peace. This is based. I rise in strong opposition to this rule that will deny members of Congress an up or down vote about whether the United States should be complicit in the war in Yemen. Let's be very clear. This is unprecedented. In American history, never has the Speaker of the House and the majority denied a member of Congress a vote on matters of war and peace. This is basically rendering ineffectual the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act was passed in a bipartisan fashion after Vietnam because our nation said never again are we going to make the mistake of Vietnam. We're going to make sure that if a member of Congress calls for a vote, that members of Congress have the Article 1, Section 8 responsibility to vote on matters of war and peace. And what the majority is saying, that if the President of the United States and the Speaker believe we should be in war, we should be in war. It doesn't matter what members of Congress think. That's what they are doing with this rule. Now, they are arguing that we are not complicit in the hostilities of Yemen to invoke the War Powers Act. But you read every article written on this in the international press or national press, and it starts with a simple line: the U.S.-backed Saudi coalition efforts in bombing. Of course we're complicit. Do you think people in Yemen don't think we're complicit? Do you think people in the Middle East or our allies don't think we are complicit? With due respect, Congressman Newhouse says, well, why not wait? Why not wait a few weeks until we're in the majority? Congressman Newhouse, Special Envoy Griffith and every report has said that 500,000 children will die. 500,000 children will die in the matter of months. They don't have aid. They don't have nutrition. And let's be very clear on what we're doing. While we're bombing the ports of Hodeidah, we are not allowing food and aid to get to those kids. And when history is written, they're not going to say Jim McGovern did this or Ro Khanna did this or Newhouse did this. They're going to say, how did the Congress not allow a vote while hundreds of thousands of kids were not allowed food and medicine? That's not the America that I believe in. It's not the America that so many Republican colleagues believe in. There's a reason that our founders gave Congress the power over war and peace, because we have to go and answer to our constituents. And I'll tell you something, there's not a single American who wouldn't want the violence to end and allow food and medicine to get to those kids who are going to face death if we do nothing. I plead with my Republican colleagues, please vote no on this resolution. Let's have a debate. Let's have a debate about the starvation and the killing going on there, and do the right thing for our Constitution and the world.
He said not one single American. Perhaps I've grown cynical in my old age, but have he seen the Republican Party? I mean, these were the guys that were screaming, let him die, when they asked whether or not a person, if the person didn't necessarily have money, should they die in the street without health care. I am skeptical that there will be some Americans that will be okay with this. But I get his main point. This is pretty atrocious, and yeah, this is pretty atrocious. This is shameful. Congress, from the standpoint of the Democratic Congress, when they come in, they'll be able to pass this. But the problem is, he's right. It's easy for the Republicans to sit back comfortable, detached from all of the stuff that's taking place while this carnage takes place. Not to mention that if they are trying to settle this war, meaning if they're trying to come to some kind of peace negotiations or force a peace negotiation, then these guys are probably going to try to mad scramble to get as much as they can out of it in order to get a stronger negotiating position. It's like in a war that you know is going to be a stalemate, the sides try to get a stronger position so when they negotiate they have things that they can give away, or in an otherwise failed effort. Saudi Arabia is armed to the teeth, and they can't bash and destroy one of the poorest nations in that region. That should give you some idea on the ineptitude of that particular nation, in particular with regards to their military. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't kill a bunch of civilians and starve a bunch of people and weaponize disease. This is a bloodthirsty, maniac, theocratic regime that we are supporting, and it is an embarrassment to me as an American with this idea that we are supporting these guys, not just supporting these guys. When it came up to a vote for Congress in order to put this down, the rabid, meat-eating, bloodthirsty Republican Party was essentially fighting on behalf of the theocrats and propagation of this war, illegal war, mind you. So I'm going to end this here. I'm not going to keep this one much longer, but this is pretty atrocious. Albright was a Clinton appointee, was cool with civilians. Yes, she was. 500,000. Yes, she was. Nobody's perfect. Some try and fail. Some just keep trying even when they fail. Nobody is perfect. What are you talking about, Trudy? I was wrong about Bernie, Jamal. Thank goodness. Yeah. So, okay, good. You agree. Rokana, brought to you by Raytheon. He is brought to you by Raytheon, but at the very least, he is trying to end this conflict and end this war. So, be fair. Be fair. Alright, I'll end this here. Don't get me wrong, he's paid for by tech companies. But, at the very least, he's trying to end this war, and I agree with him on trying to end this war. Or at the very least, our support for the war. Thanks all. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. I'll see you in a few.